The polished marble floor of Apex Dynamics Tower reflected the morning sunlight pouring through the 40-foot glass walls. Employees in tailored suits hurried through the grand lobby, balancing coffee cups and laptops, as the sound of expensive heels echoed across the building. To everyone inside, it was just another busy Monday. To Emma Carter, it was the day her entire life would change. She stepped through the revolving doors, wearing a simple beige coat over a faded blue dress. In one hand, she carried a small insulated lunch bag. In the other was a paper bag containing homemade blueberry muffins she had baked before sunrise. She had barely slept the night before. Her husband had worked late every evening that week, barely answering her calls. Still, she convinced herself he was simply overwhelmed. Maybe if he eats something homemade today, she thought, he'll finally smile again. Emma ignored the curious stares from people passing by. Compared to the polished executives around her, she looked painfully ordinary. She approached the reception desk with a warm smile. "Good morning. I'm here to see Ethan Brooks." The young receptionist looked up. "The CEO," Emma nodded. "Yes, I'm his wife." Before the receptionist could answer, the private elevator doors opened. Out stepped Ethan Brooks, perfectly tailored navy suit, luxury watch, confident smile, the man Emma had loved for 5 years. Walking beside him was Vanessa Reed, the company's glamorous chief marketing officer. Her arm rested comfortably around Ethan's. They were laughing. Emma's smile slowly disappeared. Her fingers tightened around the lunch bag. She watched as Vanessa adjusted Ethan's tie with a familiar tenderness no colleague should ever have. For a moment, the entire lobby became silent in Emma's ears. Only her heartbeat remained. Thump, thump, thump. "Ethan," he turned. The smile instantly vanished from his face. "What are you doing here?" he asked coldly. Emma forced a gentle smile. "I made your favorite lasagna." "You skipped breakfast again." She held out the lunch bag. "I just wanted to—" Before she could finish, Ethan slapped the bag out of her hands. The container exploded across the polished marble floor. Tomato sauce splattered across expensive shoes. The smell of fresh food filled the lobby. Several employees gasped. Emma froze. "Ethan!" His voice echoed through the lobby. "Didn't I tell you never to come to my office?" Every conversation stopped. Dozens, then hundreds of employees looked toward them. Emma lowered her eyes. "I only wanted to—" "You wanted to embarrass me." His words cut deeper than any knife. "You look like you came straight out of a thrift store." He looked around at the crowd before speaking louder. "Do you have any idea how ridiculous I look standing next to you?" Whispers spread immediately. "That's his wife? I thought she'd be prettier. She doesn't even look like she belongs here." Vanessa crossed her arms and smiled. "Oh my God," she laughed softly. "This is actually sad." She nudged the spilled lunch container with the tip of her designer heel. "You brought homemade food." She looked Emma up and down. "That's adorable." Several employees laughed. Emma felt every eye burning into her skin. She bent down to pick up the broken container. Her hands trembled. Before she could grab it, Vanessa stepped directly on the plastic lid. Crunch. "I'm sorry," Vanessa said with fake sympathy. "I didn't see it." More laughter. Emma quietly picked up the food with shaking hands. A drop of sauce stained her sleeve. Ethan looked at security. "Why is she still standing here?" 2 security guards hesitated. "So, I said escort her out." Emma slowly stood. Her eyes met Ethan's. There was no anger, no screaming, only heartbreak. 5 years, she whispered. "What?" I believed every promise you ever made. Ethan rolled his eyes. Oh, please, don't start playing the victim, Vanessa smirked. If I were you, I'd disappear. You don't belong in his world anymore. Someone in the crowd chuckled. Another employee whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear. Looks like the CEO finally upgraded. Laughter erupted again. Emma looked around the lobby. Not one person defended her. Not one. She realized something terrifying. People never respect the person who quietly builds someone else's success. They only admire the person standing in the spotlight. One of the guards stepped forward politely. "Ma'am, please come with us." Emma didn't move. Instead, she reached into her handbag. Everyone expected tissues or a phone to call someone. Instead, she removed a slim black leather folder. She opened it for only a second, long enough to confirm one document inside. Then she closed it again. A faint smile appeared on her face. So small, almost invisible. Ethan noticed it. "What are you smiling about?" Emma looked directly into his eyes. For the first time, she wasn't afraid. Her voice became calm, almost frighteningly calm. "You think today is the day you got rid of me?" She paused. "It isn't. It's the day you lost everything." Ethan laughed loudly. "Oh, really?" Vanessa laughed with him. "And who's going to take everything from the CEO?" Emma looked at them for several silent seconds. Then she reached into her coat pocket. She pulled out her phone, dialed one number. The call connected almost instantly. She spoke only one sentence. "It's time. Begin the transition." She ended the call, put the phone away, picked up the empty lunch bag from the floor, turned around, and calmly walked toward the glass exit doors. No tears, no shouting, no begging. Just silence. Behind her, the employees laughed. Vanessa kissed Ethan lightly on the cheek. The CEO smiled proudly. Neither of them noticed. On the 42nd floor, inside the boardroom, every executive's phone had just received an emergency notification. The first domino had already fallen, and within the next hour, the empire Ethan believed he had built would begin collapsing from the inside. The cold wind hit Emma's face as she stepped onto the crowded streets of Manhattan. Behind her, the glass doors of Apex Dynamics quietly closed. The laughter inside the lobby still echoed in her mind. She didn't cry. Not anymore. Instead, she walked slowly down the sidewalk, clutching the empty lunch bag against her chest. Every painful step pulled her deeper into memories she had tried to bury. 5 years earlier, life looked completely different. Ethan Brooks wasn't the confident CEO everyone admired today. He was just another ambitious dreamer working out of a tiny rented office above an old coffee shop in Brooklyn. The office barely had enough space for 2 desks. The paint peeled from the walls. During winter, the heater barely worked. Some nights, they wore jackets inside just to stay warm. But none of that mattered, because they had each other. Emma believed in Ethan long before anyone else did. When investors laughed at his business idea, Emma stayed up all night redesigning his presentations. When banks rejected his loan applications, she spent weeks researching new funding opportunities. When payroll couldn't be paid, she quietly sold the jewelry her late grandmother had left her. Ethan never knew. She simply smiled and told him, "Don't worry, everything will be okay." There were countless nights when Ethan fell asleep over his laptop. Emma would gently cover him with a blanket, finish the financial reports herself, then prepare tomorrow's investor meeting before sunrise. She never asked for recognition. Watching him succeed was enough. At least, that's what she believed back then. The first breakthrough came 18 months later. A small investment firm agreed to fund Ethan's startup. Everyone congratulated Ethan for his brilliant negotiation. No one knew. It was Emma who had secretly rewritten the entire proposal the night before. Even the investor had personally complimented the business strategy. He never realized he was actually praising Emma's work. Ethan accepted every compliment with pride. Emma simply smiled from the back of the room. Success came quickly after that. The company grew from 10 employees to 50, then 100. Within 4 years, Apex Dynamics had become one of the fastest-growing technology companies in New York. Business magazines called Ethan the self-made visionary. Television interviews described him as a genius entrepreneur. Emma watched every interview from home. Every time reporters asked, "Who inspired your success?" she waited. Just once. She hoped Ethan would mention her name. He never did. At first, she convinced herself he was simply busy. Then the late-night meetings became more frequent. Weekend dinners disappeared. Phone calls became shorter. Conversations became colder. Eventually, silence replaced love. One evening, Emma waited nearly 3 hours for dinner. The candles had already burned out. The food had gone cold. Finally, Ethan walked through the front door. His expensive suit carried the faint scent of a perfume Emma had never worn. "You're late," she said softly. "I had meetings." She smiled gently. "I made your favorite dinner." "I'm not hungry." Without even looking at the table, Ethan walked upstairs. Emma remained standing alone in the dining room. She quietly packed the untouched food into the refrigerator. That became their new routine. Weeks later, she accidentally found a luxury boutique receipt inside Ethan's jacket. A diamond bracelet, $28,000. She had never received jewelry that expensive. When she asked about it, Ethan answered without even lifting his eyes from his phone. It was a business gift. Emma wanted to believe him, so she did. The truth became impossible to ignore a month later. Late one night, Ethan forgot his tablet at home. A message appeared on the screen. "Vanessa, I miss you already." Emma stared at the message for a long time. She didn't unlock the device. She didn't read anything else. She simply placed the tablet back exactly where she found it. That night, she sat alone on the living room couch until sunrise. Not because she needed proof, because deep inside, she already knew. From that day forward, everything changed. Ethan stopped treating their home like a home. It became little more than a hotel where he occasionally slept. His compliments disappeared. His patience disappeared. Even his kindness disappeared. The man who once thanked Emma for every little thing now criticized everything she did, her cooking, her clothes, her voice, even the way she smiled. One afternoon, Emma overheard Ethan talking on the phone. "I've outgrown her." Those 4 words broke something inside her, not because she feared losing him, but because she finally realized the man she loved no longer existed. Perhaps he never had. As months passed, the distance between them became impossible to bridge. Yet Emma stayed. Not because she was weak, but because she still believed people could remember who they once were. She kept hoping the kind young man from the tiny Brooklyn office would return. She had no idea. The man standing beside Vanessa in the company lobby that morning was no longer the same person, and neither was she. Emma stepped into a yellow taxi without looking back. Rain began tapping softly against the windows as Manhattan disappeared behind her. She rested the empty lunch bag on her lap. Her hands were calm, too calm. The driver glanced at her through the rearview mirror. "Where to, ma'am?" Emma answered quietly. "Liberty Financial Plaza." The driver nodded. As the taxi pulled into traffic, Emma looked out the window at the city she had helped build from the shadows. 5 years. 5 years of hiding. 5 years of pretending to be invisible. Today, that ended. 40 minutes later, the taxi stopped in front of a modern glass building with no company logo outside. There were no advertisements, no public reception. Only a discreet silver plaque beside the entrance. Harrison and Cole, corporate law group Emma, stepped out. The security guard standing at the front door immediately straightened his posture. "Good afternoon, Miss Carter." He opened the door before she reached it. "Mr. Harrison is expecting you." Emma simply nodded. She had never announced she was coming. She never needed to. The private elevator required fingerprint verification. Emma placed her finger on the scanner. Access granted. The elevator moved directly to the top floor. No buttons, no stops, no delays. When the doors opened, 6 people were already waiting. 3 corporate attorneys, 2 senior financial advisors, 1 gray-haired man standing near the conference table. The moment Emma entered, everyone stood. "Good afternoon, Miss Carter." No applause, no excitement, only quiet respect. The gray-haired man walked toward her. David Harrison, one of New York's most respected corporate lawyers. He extended his hand. "I wish today's meeting had happened under better circumstances." Emma managed a faint smile. "So do I." She removed her coat and sat at the head of the conference table. David placed a thick leather folder in front of her. Its cover carried one word: confidential. He opened it carefully. Inside were dozens of legal documents, signed years ago. "Everything has been verified," David said. "The agreements are still fully enforceable." Emma slowly turned the first page. There it was. The original incorporation agreement, dated 5 years earlier, long before Apex Dynamics became famous, before investors, before magazines, before Ethan became CEO. David pointed toward a highlighted paragraph. "As you requested years ago, we kept your name completely confidential." Emma remained silent. David continued. "Officially, Ethan founded Apex Dynamics. Legally," he slid another document across the table, "you created every piece of technology the company was built on." Emma looked down. "Patent number 1, Artificial Intelligence Logistics System. Inventor, Emma Carter. Patent number 2, Predictive Supply Network. Inventor, Emma Carter. Patent number 3, Business Automation Engine. Inventor, Emma Carter. Every core innovation that made Apex Dynamics worth billions belonged to her. Years earlier, Emma had transferred daily operations to Ethan because she hated publicity. She preferred creating ideas, not giving interviews. She believed Ethan enjoyed leading people. She enjoyed building solutions. Together, they were supposed to be unstoppable. Instead, he slowly convinced the world he had created everything alone. David opened another folder. "This is the shareholder agreement." Emma read it without expression. According to the contract, if the CEO committed fraud, domestic violence, or actions causing severe reputational damage to the company, the intellectual property licenses would automatically return to their original owner, Emma. David looked directly at her. Today's incident activated that clause. Silence filled the room. One of the financial advisors spoke. "We've already preserved the security footage from the company lobby. The witness statements are being collected. The board will receive everything before noon. Emma nodded once. No one edits the footage. No one protects him. Let the truth speak. Understood. David slid one final document toward her. It was the emergency authorization form. Only one signature was missing, hers. If you sign this, the licensing rights expire immediately. Apex Dynamics will legally lose the technology behind every major product. The board must either negotiate with you or remove Ethan. Emma stared at the paper. 5 years, one signature, everything would change. She picked up the fountain pen. For just a second, she remembered the tiny office in Brooklyn, the broken heater, cheap coffee, shared dreams, the man who once promised, "No matter how successful I become, I'll never stop choosing you." A tear almost formed. Almost. Then she remembered the sound of the lunch container hitting the marble floor. The laughter, the humiliation, the look in Ethan's eyes. Not guilt, not regret. Contempt. The tear disappeared. Emma signed her name. Emma Carter. David closed the folder. It begins now. Emma looked toward the rain-covered skyline. Her voice remained calm. I didn't come here to destroy a company. She paused. I came to stop one man from believing he could steal someone's dreams and call them his own. At that exact moment, inside Apex Dynamics, every member of the board of directors received an encrypted email marked urgent, legal review, required. None of them knew it yet. But the empire they believed belonged to Ethan Brooks had never truly been his, and within the next few minutes, the boardroom doors would close. No one would be allowed to leave. The real battle was about to begin. The executive elevator doors opened on the 42nd floor. Unlike the busy lobby downstairs, this floor was silent. Every office door was closed. Assistants hurried through the hallways with serious expressions. Inside the largest conference room, 12 members of the board of directors sat around a long walnut table. No one was speaking. A single email displayed on every tablet. Urgent board session, mandatory attendance. No exceptions at the same time. Ethan Brooks stepped out of another elevator with his usual confidence. He adjusted his tie while smiling at Vanessa. Did you see her face? Vanessa laughed. I almost felt sorry for her. She paused dramatically. Almost. The two laughed together. Neither of them noticed dozens of employees suddenly avoiding eye contact. The atmosphere on the executive floor felt different. Ethan entered his office. His assistant immediately stood. Sir, the board is requesting your presence. Ethan smiled confidently. Already? They must want to discuss the Phoenix project. The assistant swallowed nervously. I don't know, sir. 5 minutes later, Ethan walked into the boardroom. Good morning, everyone. No one answered. Normally the directors greeted him warmly. Today, nothing. The chairman of the board slowly closed the conference room door. Click. The electronic lock activated. Ethan frowned. What's going on? Across the table, the company's general counsel quietly stood. He placed 3 sealed folders in front of every director. Then one final folder, directly in front of Ethan. Mr. Brooks, before this meeting continues, you are required to surrender your company access badge. Ethan laughed. I'm sorry. I think there's been some misunderstanding. One director calmly replied, There is no misunderstanding. Ethan looked around the room. Every face remained expressionless. Vanessa wasn't there. None of his executive team was there. Only the board. Only lawyers. Only silence. The general counsel opened a projector. The screen lit up. Security footage appeared. The company lobby. Timestamp 9:14 a.m. Ethan watched himself slap the lunch bag from Emma's hands. The room remained silent. The video continued. Every insult, every laugh, every order given to security, every humiliating second, no edits, no missing footage, just the truth. When the video ended, the screen turned black. No one spoke for several seconds. Finally, the chairman folded his hands. "Mr. Brooks, would you like to explain your conduct?" Ethan forced a laugh. "My wife and I had a personal disagreement. It has nothing to do with company business." The general counsel shook his head. It became company business the moment it happened inside company headquarters, in front of employees, clients, and security cameras. Another director spoke. "There's something even more serious." He opened another folder. "Early this morning, our legal department received multiple intellectual property claims." Ethan frowned. "What claims?" The projector changed again. 3 patent certificates appeared. Then another. Then another. Each one carried the same name. Inventor, Emma Carter. Ethan stared at the screen. His smile slowly disappeared. "What? No, that's impossible." The company's lead attorney continued. "According to documents filed 5 years ago, every core technology currently generating Apex Dynamics revenue was legally created by Emma Carter." Silence. Absolute silence. Ethan shook his head. "She's my wife. Everything she created belongs to us." The attorney calmly replied, "Not under U.S. intellectual property law. The patents belong solely to their registered inventor." Another document appeared. Exclusive Technology License Agreement, signed 5 years earlier. The attorney continued reading. "The license automatically terminates if the acting CEO commits conduct that seriously damages the company's reputation, including documented workplace violence." The room became even quieter. Ethan suddenly stood. "This is ridiculous. Who planned this? Who's behind it?" No one answered. Instead, the chairman slowly slid one final document across the table. "Read page 4. Ethan picked it up. His hands no longer felt steady. Line after line. His face became paler. His breathing slowed. His eyes widened. Without Emma's technology, every flagship product, every software platform, every major client contract could legally disappear within days. The company wasn't losing a lawsuit. It was losing its foundation. One elderly board member quietly broke the silence. "For years, we believed you built this company." He looked Ethan directly in the eyes. "It appears we were mistaken." For the first time that morning, Ethan felt something unfamiliar. Fear. Real fear. Not because of Emma, not because of the board, but because he finally understood. The woman he had humiliated in front of hundreds of employees was never standing behind him. She had been carrying him all along, and now she had finally let go. The silence inside the boardroom felt heavier than concrete. No one moved, no one spoke. Every director sat frozen, staring at the legal documents spread across the polished oak table. For years, they had believed Ethan Brooks was the brilliant mind behind Apex Dynamics. Now, everything they believed was beginning to crumble. The chairman slowly folded his hands. "Mr. Brooks, you have one opportunity to explain why the board should continue trusting your leadership." Ethan forced himself to stay calm. "This is nothing more than a legal misunderstanding. My wife is emotional. She's trying to hurt me because of our personal issues." He looked around the table, hoping someone would support him. No one did. One director finally spoke. If this is simply a domestic dispute, he tapped the patent documents. Then explain why every one of these technologies belongs to Emma Carter. Ethan swallowed. They were developed together. She just helped with paperwork. Another director immediately interrupted. According to the engineering department, the original source code was written from a private account registered under Emma Carter's name. Another file landed on the table. Every development log, every prototype, every research notebook, they all point to one person, Emma. Ethan felt the room spinning. For years, he had convinced himself that none of those documents mattered anymore. He believed success erased history. He was wrong. Before anyone could speak again, the conference room doors opened. The company's chief financial officer walked in carrying a tablet. His face looked pale. "Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt. This cannot wait." The chairman nodded. "What happened?" The CFO took a deep breath. "Our three largest institutional investors have suspended all pending funding." The room fell silent. He continued. "They've requested an immediate review of corporate governance." Another director frowned. "Reason?" The CFO looked directly at Ethan. "They're concerned about today's incident and the legal ownership of the company's technology." Ethan stood up so quickly his chair nearly fell backward. "This is ridiculous. They can't pull funding over one argument." The CFO quietly answered, "They already have." He projected the emails onto the large screen. Investments suspended. Pending legal clarification. Board action required immediately. One after another. 3 major investors. Hundreds of millions of dollars. Frozen. Ethan immediately grabbed his phone. He dialed his biggest client. Straight to voicemail. He tried another. No answer. A third. The call disconnected after one ring. His heartbeat accelerated. Something was terribly wrong. At that exact moment, outside the boardroom, news began spreading through headquarters. Employees whispered in hallways. Managers stopped working. Phones vibrated non-stop. One notification after another appeared across the company's internal communication system. Emergency board review, leadership investigation, executive access under review. People exchanged confused looks. No one understood what was happening. Only one rumor spread faster than the others. The CEO is in trouble. On the 21st floor, Vanessa Reed was finishing a marketing presentation when her assistant rushed inside. "Vanessa, you need to see this." "What now?" The assistant placed a tablet on her desk. The headline made her face lose all color. "Board investigates CEO after workplace abuse incident" below it. A still image from the lobby security footage. Emma standing alone. Ethan screaming. Employees watching. Vanessa covering her mouth. "No," she whispered. "This can't be happening." Back inside the boardroom, the chairman spoke again. "Mr. Brooks, until this investigation is complete, you are temporarily relieved of all executive authority." Ethan stared at him in disbelief. "You can't do that." The chairman calmly replied, "We already have." The general counsel slid another document across the table. Temporary suspension of executive powers. Effective immediately. Ethan's hands began shaking. "This company needs me." One elderly director looked at him sadly. "No," he replied. "It needed honesty." The electronic lock beside the conference room door beeped. A security officer entered. He walked directly toward Ethan. "Mr. Brooks, may I have your executive access badge, please?" Ethan laughed nervously. This is insane. The officer didn't move. I'll need the badge. Slowly, Ethan unclipped the silver badge from his jacket. For 5 years, it had opened every door inside Apex Dynamics. Today, it became nothing more than a piece of plastic. The officer placed it inside an evidence envelope. As Ethan watched, his company email logged out automatically. His laptop disconnected from the corporate network. His executive parking access disappeared. His phone displayed a single notification. Access denied. Everything happened within seconds. The same system he had controlled for years no longer recognized him, miles away. Emma stood alone beside the large windows of David Harrison's office. Rain continued falling over Manhattan. She quietly watched the city below. David entered the room carrying a fresh folder. It started. Emma didn't turn around. The board suspended him. David nodded. And the investors? They're waiting for your next decision. Emma remained silent for several moments. Finally, she spoke. I never wanted revenge. David looked at her. I wanted accountability. She slowly faced him. If he had simply apologized this morning, if he had shown even a little remorse, I would have walked away. She lowered her eyes. But instead, he chose humiliation. She looked back toward the skyline. So now, he'll finally learn what it feels like to lose something he never deserved. Back inside Apex Dynamics, Ethan stood alone in the boardroom. The directors quietly gathered their documents. One by one, they walked out. No one looked back. Within minutes, the enormous conference room was empty. Only Ethan remained, for the first time in years. The most powerful man in the building sat completely alone, outside the glass walls. Employees continued working. Phones kept ringing. Meetings continued. The company hadn't stopped. Only his world had. And somewhere across Manhattan, the woman everyone believed had just been thrown away was only beginning to reveal the truth. The news spread through Apex Dynamics faster than anyone expected. Within an hour, every hallway echoed with whispers. Employees abandoned coffee breaks to gather in small groups. No one talked about quarterly profits anymore. Everyone talked about one thing. The CEO had been suspended. No one understood how everything had collapsed so quickly. The man who had walked into the building that morning with absolute confidence was now locked inside a legal nightmare. On the top floor, the board of directors reconvened for a second emergency session. This time, there was one empty chair at the head of the table, Ethan's chair. The chairman looked around the room. Before we proceed, we have one final guest. The conference room doors opened. Emma Carter walked inside. She wore the same simple beige coat, the same blue dress, no designer handbag, no expensive jewelry, no bodyguards, just quiet confidence. The moment she entered, every director stood, not because she demanded respect, but because they finally understood who she really was. Ethan stared at her in disbelief. You, his voice cracked. You planned all of this. Emma looked at him calmly. No. I planned a future with you. She paused. You destroyed that plan yourself. The room fell silent. The chairman invited Emma to take a seat. She refused. I won't sit in a chair that belongs to someone else's responsibility. Instead, she remained standing near the window. I only came to answer your questions, the general counsel began. Miss Carter, for the record, did you intentionally hide your ownership of the company's technology? Emma nodded. Yes. Why? She smiled faintly. Because I never wanted recognition. I wanted peace. She looked toward Ethan. I believed a marriage should never become a competition. Another director leaned forward. Then why give Ethan all the credit? Emma answered honestly. He loved leading people. I loved creating solutions. I thought we were building one dream together. She lowered her eyes. I didn't realize he was building a future without me. Silence filled the room again. Even the attorneys stopped taking notes. The chairman asked one final question. Are you willing to continue licensing your technology to Apex Dynamics? Emma didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked directly at every board member. I have only one condition. The directors exchanged nervous glances. What condition? Emma took a slow breath. This company was built by hundreds of honest employees. They don't deserve to lose their jobs because of one man's arrogance, she continued. I will renew every technology license. If the board permanently removes Ethan Brooks as CEO. The room became perfectly still. Ethan slammed both hands onto the conference table. You can't do this. I built this company. Emma finally looked directly into his eyes. No. You managed it. I built it. The words hit harder than any courtroom verdict. For several long seconds, no one spoke. Then the chairman quietly announced, the board will now vote. One by one. Each director pressed the electronic voting button in front of them. Green, 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 green. Another green light. Then another. The final result appeared on the large screen. 12 votes. Remove CEO. 0 votes. Retain CEO. The decision was unanimous. Ethan couldn't breathe. This isn't legal. The general counsel calmly handed him another folder. It is. The board has acted within its authority. Effective immediately. Your employment with Apex Dynamics has been terminated. The words echoed inside the room. Terminated. Just one word. Yet it erased 5 years of power. A security officer entered once again. Mr. Brooks, I'll escort you to collect your personal belongings. Ethan didn't move. He looked around the room. Every director avoided his eyes. The same people who once applauded him now refused to even speak to him. Power had disappeared, and with it, every fake friendship. As Ethan slowly walked toward the door, he stopped beside Emma. His voice became almost a whisper. You've ruined my life. Emma remained calm. No. She answered softly. I simply stopped protecting the lies that were ruining mine. Without another word, she walked past him. For the first time in years, he watched her leave and realized he had never truly known the woman he married. Less than an hour later, the company released an official statement. Apex Dynamics announces immediate leadership transition. The press exploded. Business channels interrupted live programming. Financial websites published breaking news alerts. Social media erupted. Employees refreshed their phones every few seconds. No one could believe the story unfolding. The once celebrated CEO had fallen in a single day. But the biggest surprise was still waiting. That evening, one of America's largest business news networks announced an exclusive interview. Not with Ethan Brooks, with Emma Carter. For the first time. The woman who had spent years in the shadows was finally ready to tell the truth, and millions of people were about to hear a story that Ethan had spent 5 years trying to bury. By sunrise the next morning, the story had become national news. Every major business channel carried the same headline. Tech CEO removed after shocking workplace abuse allegations. Another headline quickly followed. The hidden innovator behind Apex Dynamics finally revealed. Emma Carter's name, a name almost no one had heard 24 hours earlier, was suddenly everywhere, inside Apex Dynamics headquarters. The atmosphere had completely changed. Employees who had once rushed to impress Ethan now avoided mentioning his name. Small groups gathered in break rooms. People replayed the lobby security footage on their phones. The video spread across social media by the millions. Every insult, every laugh, every humiliating moment. The public watched it all. One employee quietly lowered his phone. "I was standing right there," he whispered. "I should have said something." Another employee nodded with guilt. "So should I." For the first time, people realized that silence also had consequences. Across town, Ethan sat alone inside his luxury penthouse. The television played non-stop coverage of the scandal. He muted it. Then another notification appeared. His phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Missed calls, emails, messages, not from friends, from lawyers, from reporters, from people demanding answers. He opened social media. The first post he saw was from a former employee. "Real leaders don't humiliate people. We finally know who built Apex Dynamics." Thousands of likes. Another post appeared. "Justice for Emma Carter." Hundreds of thousands of comments. Another. Everywhere he looked, his reputation was collapsing. Furious, Ethan grabbed his phone and called Vanessa. It rang 3 times. She answered. "Ethan, thank God. I need you." There was silence. Then Vanessa spoke carefully. "I don't think we should be talking right now." Ethan frowned. "What are you talking about?" "You said we'd get through everything together." Vanessa sighed. "Things have changed." Ethan stood from the couch. "Changed? They're investigating everyone close to you." "My lawyers told me to keep my distance." His face hardened. "So that's it? You walk away." Vanessa remained silent. Finally, she spoke the words Ethan never expected. "I cared about your success. I never expected to lose my own career." Click. The call ended. Ethan stared at the phone. For years, he believed Vanessa loved him. Now, the moment everything collapsed, she disappeared. The realization hurt more than he wanted to admit. Meanwhile, across Manhattan, Emma arrived at a community center far from television cameras. Not for interviews, not for celebration. She quietly delivered breakfast to a women's support organization that helped victims of domestic abuse. The director welcomed her warmly. "You didn't have to come personally," Emma smiled. "I know what it feels like to think no one believes you." She spent the next hour speaking privately with several women. No reporters, no photographers, no publicity, just listening. Later that afternoon, David Harrison entered the room carrying another folder. "The divorce petition is ready." Emma looked at it for several seconds. 5 years of marriage reduced to a stack of papers. David asked gently, "Are you certain?" Emma nodded. "I stopped losing my husband a long time ago." She paused. "Today I'm only letting go of the paperwork." At the same time, federal investigators arrived at Apex Dynamics headquarters. Not because of Emma, because once the board began reviewing company records, they discovered irregular executive expense reports, luxury vacations listed as business meetings, corporate funds used for personal purchases, undisclosed executive bonuses. The investigation was growing larger than anyone imagined. Ethan watched the news in disbelief. Every hour brought another disaster. His personal attorney finally called. "Ethan, we have a serious problem." "What now?" "The board has turned over financial records. They're fully cooperating." Ethan closed his eyes. "They're trying to destroy me." His attorney answered honestly. "No, they're trying to protect the company." For the first time, Ethan understood something painful. Power doesn't disappear all at once. It leaves one person at a time. The assistants stop answering. The executives stop calling. The investors stop believing. The friends stop visiting. Until one day, you're standing completely alone. That evening, Emma walked onto the balcony of her apartment. The city lights stretched endlessly before her. Her phone rang. It was an unknown number. She answered. A familiar voice spoke softly. "Emma." It was Ethan. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. Finally, he whispered, "Can we meet?" Emma looked across the skyline. "What for?" "I need to explain." She closed her eyes briefly, then answered, "You had years to tell me the truth. You chose silence." Another long pause. Then she quietly added, "If you want forgiveness, don't ask me. Ask the woman who believed in you when no one else did." She ended the call. Without anger, without tears, without regret. Across the city, Ethan lowered the phone. For the first time since everything began, he realized he wasn't fighting to save his company anymore. He was fighting against the consequences of becoming the man he once promised he would never be. And tomorrow, he would come face to face with Emma one last time. Not as a CEO, not as a husband, but as a man who had lost everything he valued. 3 days later, the rain had finally stopped. New York's skyline shimmered beneath a clear autumn sky. But for Ethan Brooks, nothing felt brighter. He hadn't slept. His beard had grown uneven. Dark circles surrounded his eyes. The man once featured on magazine covers now looked like someone carrying the weight of an entire lifetime. His phone contained only 2 appointments, one with his divorce attorney, the other, a meeting Emma had agreed to. She had chosen the location herself, not a luxury restaurant, not a corporate office, not even their old house. Instead, a small public park overlooking the Hudson River, the same park where Ethan had proposed to her 5 years earlier, the same bench, the same view. Only this time, everything was different. Emma arrived exactly on time. She wore a simple cream-colored coat and carried a small notebook under her arm. No security, no lawyers, no cameras. She wasn't there to celebrate. She was there to close the final chapter of her life. Ethan stood as she approached. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them felt heavier than any argument. Finally, Ethan broke it. "You look different." Emma smiled politely. "No, I just stopped pretending I was happy." They sat on opposite ends of the wooden bench. The wind gently moved the fallen leaves around their feet. For several seconds, only the sound of the river filled the silence. "I've replayed that morning 1,000 times, Ethan said quietly. "If I could change it," Emma interrupted him. "It wasn't one morning." He looked down. She continued calmly. "It was hundreds of mornings, hundreds of lies, hundreds of moments where you chose your pride over our marriage." Ethan rubbed his trembling hands together. "I never meant for things to go this far." Emma looked toward the river. "They always go this far. When someone believes they'll never face consequences." He reached into his coat pocket. Slowly, he removed a small velvet box. Emma immediately recognized it. Inside was her wedding ring, the one she had left behind the day she moved out. "I kept hoping you'd come back for it." Emma stared at the ring. It represented promises, dreams, a future that no longer existed. She gently pushed the box back toward him. "Keep it. It belongs to a memory, not a To my future. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. I loved you. Emma looked at him with quiet sadness. I believe you did. She paused. But love isn't something you say. It's something you protect, and you stopped protecting it a long time ago. For the first time, Ethan had no answer, no excuse, no argument. Only regret. He finally whispered, What happens now? Emma opened the notebook she had been carrying. Inside were old photographs, the tiny office above the coffee shop, their first business license, a picture of them eating pizza on the floor because they couldn't afford furniture. She smiled softly. Do you remember these days? Ethan nodded. They were the happiest days of my life. Emma looked directly into his eyes. They were mine too. She closed the notebook. The difference is, I never forgot them. Ethan lowered his head. I'm sorry. The words came out broken, not rehearsed, not calculated, just broken. Emma listened. She had imagined hearing those words for years, now that they had finally arrived. They changed nothing. She stood from the bench. Ethan, I forgive you. His eyes lifted with hope. Before he could speak, she continued. I forgive you because I don't want to carry this pain for the rest of my life. She took one slow breath. But forgiveness is not permission to come back. The hope disappeared from Ethan's face. Emma reached into her handbag. She placed one envelope on the bench beside him. The divorce agreement. You'll receive the official court date next week. She looked at him one final time. I don't want revenge anymore. I want peace. She turned and began walking away. After only a few steps, Ethan called after her. Emma, she stopped, without turning around. His voice cracked. Will you ever remember me as the man you loved? Emma stood silently for several moments. Then she answered without looking back. I'll remember the young man who dreamed beside me in a tiny office. She paused. The man standing here today, I don't know him. With those words, she walked away, never looking back. Ethan remained alone on the bench. The wind carried dried leaves across the empty path. He opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside, along with the divorce papers, was one folded sheet of paper, a handwritten letter. It wasn't filled with anger or blame. It contained only one sentence. Success should never cost you the people who helped you achieve it. Ethan read it again and again, until the words blurred through his tears. For the first time in years, he truly understood what he had lost. Not a company, not wealth, not status. He had lost the one person who believed in him before the world even knew his name. And that was something no amount of money could ever buy back, far across the city. Emma stepped into a waiting car. David Harrison looked at her. How do you feel? Emma looked out of the window as the skyline slowly disappeared behind them. She smiled softly. Free. The car pulled into traffic. Ahead of her, a completely new future waited. Behind her, one chapter had finally ended, but another was just about to begin. 2 months later, the courthouse steps in Lower Manhattan were packed with reporters. Television cameras lined the sidewalks. Microphones pointed toward the entrance. Satellite vans filled the streets. Everyone had gathered for one reason: the final hearing of the case that had shaken America's corporate world. Emma Carter versus Ethan Brooks. Inside the courtroom, everything was quiet. The polished wooden benches were filled with journalists, investors, former employees, and legal observers. No one whispered. No one moved. Everyone waited. At exactly 9 o'clock, the judge entered, All rise. The courtroom stood. Moments later, Emma walked in with David Harrison. She wore a simple navy blue business suit. No luxury brands, no dramatic entrance, just confidence. On the opposite side, Ethan entered with his legal team. He looked nothing like the man who had once dominated boardrooms. The confidence was gone. His shoulders slumped. His eyes rarely left the floor. The judge reviewed the case. For the record, this court has reviewed evidence related to intellectual property ownership, executive misconduct, breach of fiduciary duty, and marital asset disputes. He looked toward both legal teams. Are both parties prepared? Yes, Your Honor. David Harrison stood first. He wasn't interested in making emotional speeches. He simply presented facts. Security footage from the lobby, corporate emails, patent registrations, engineering records, financial documents, witness statements from employees. One by one, every piece of evidence painted the same picture. Emma had built the company's core technology. Ethan had taken public credit for it. And when his marriage began falling apart, he chose humiliation over respect. The courtroom projector displayed one final image, the lobby surveillance footage, the moment Ethan knocked the lunch from Emma's hands. Silence filled the courtroom. Several reporters lowered their cameras. Even after seeing it dozens of times, the video remained difficult to watch. The judge turned toward Ethan. Mr. Brooks, would you like to dispute the authenticity of this evidence? Ethan slowly stood. His lawyer placed a hand on his arm, but Ethan gently moved it away. He looked directly at the judge. No, Your Honor. The courtroom became perfectly still. He continued quietly. I don't dispute it. For the first time, he stopped defending himself. He stopped making excuses. I made those decisions. I said those words. I hurt my wife. His voice cracked. And I destroyed the only person who stood beside me before anyone else believed in me. Emma remained silent. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't celebrating. She simply listened. After several hours of testimony, the judge announced a short recess. Outside the courtroom, reporters rushed to file breaking news updates. Across America, millions followed the hearing live. An hour later, the court reconvened. The judge adjusted his glasses and began reading his decision. This court recognizes Emma Carter as the sole creator and legal owner of the disputed intellectual property. He continued, the licensing agreements executed between the parties are valid and enforceable. Emma quietly closed her eyes, not from relief, from closure. The judge then addressed the financial matters. Based on the evidence presented, the court orders a fair division of marital assets consistent with state law. He paused. Furthermore, Mr. Brooks is permanently prohibited from representing himself as the sole founder or creator of Apex Dynamics core technologies. A quiet murmur spread across the courtroom. History had officially been corrected. The judge looked toward Ethan one final time. Leadership is built on integrity. When integrity fails, success cannot protect it. He struck the gavel. This matter is concluded. Outside the courthouse, reporters immediately surrounded Emma. Miss Carter, do you feel you got revenge? Another shouted. Do you hate your ex-husband? Emma stopped walking. She turned toward the microphones. For a long moment, she said nothing. Finally, she answered. This was never about revenge. She looked directly into the cameras. It was about the truth. She continued. Too many people believe that kindness is weakness. They mistake patience for silence. and they mistake silence for surrender. She smiled gently. They're not the same thing. A reporter asked one final question. If you could say one thing to people watching this story. Emma thought for a moment, then replied, never allow someone's title, their money, or their power to convince you that your value depends on their approval. She nodded politely. Thank you. Without another word, she walked down the courthouse steps. The reporters remained behind, still calling her name. Across the street, Ethan stood alone. No cameras surrounded him. No employees waited for him. No executives opened car doors. His attorney quietly shook his hand before leaving. One by one, everyone disappeared. He watched Emma drive away. Not with anger, not with jealousy, only regret. For the first time, he understood something money could never teach. Losing a company hurts. Losing your reputation hurts even more. But losing the one person who believed in you before the world ever knew your name, that kind of loss stays with you forever. As the courthouse doors closed behind him, a chapter of his life ended. But across the city, another chapter was just beginning. Emma wasn't walking toward revenge anymore. She was walking toward a future she had built with her own hands. And this time, no one would ever be able to take it away. 1 year later, the morning sun reflected off the glass walls of a brand new skyscraper overlooking the Manhattan skyline. At the entrance, a silver sign caught everyone's attention. Carter Innovations beneath it. A simple slogan. Innovation built on integrity. Employees from different backgrounds walked through the revolving doors with smiles on their faces. No one rushed in fear. No one whispered behind each other's backs. The company had become known for one thing above everything else: respect inside the lobby. A young receptionist nervously greeted her first day at work. She accidentally dropped a stack of folders. Before she could bend down, someone helped her. Don't worry. It happens. The receptionist looked up. Her eyes widened. Miss Carter, Emma smiled warmly. Welcome to the team. There were no cameras, no audience. She simply helped gather the papers before walking toward the elevators. Several employees smiled. That small moment said more about her leadership than any speech ever could. The executive boardroom looked nothing like the one at Apex Dynamics. There was no oversized chair at the head of the table. Every seat looked exactly the same. Emma believed leadership wasn't about sitting above people. It was about standing beside them. The weekly meeting began. The chief technology officer smiled. We've officially crossed 1 million customers. Applause filled the room. The finance director continued. We've created over 2,000 new jobs in just 12 months. More applause. Then the human resources director spoke. Our employee satisfaction rating is the highest in the industry. Emma smiled. That's the achievement I'm most proud of. A young manager raised her hand. Miss Carter, why did you choose to build another company instead of taking back Apex Dynamics? The room became quiet. Emma looked out the window for a moment before answering. I didn't want to spend my future rebuilding my past. She smiled gently. I wanted to create something no one could ever steal. The room nodded in quiet admiration. Later that afternoon, Emma visited another floor of the building. It wasn't filled with executives. It was filled with students. Young women from different universities sat in a large classroom, participating in a technology mentorship program. A banner on the wall read, "The Emma Carter Foundation, supporting women in technology and entrepreneurship." Emma greeted each student personally. One young woman stood nervously. Miss Carter, I almost quit engineering because everyone kept telling me I wasn't good enough. Emma smiled. Do you know how many times people underestimated me? The student shook her head. Emma laughed softly. I stopped counting. The room laughed with her. Then Emma said something every student wrote down. Never let someone else's opinion become the limit of your potential. The classroom erupted into applause. Across the city, things looked very different for Ethan Brooks. He no longer lived in the luxury penthouse overlooking Central Park. He had sold it months earlier. The expensive sports cars were gone. The designer suits had disappeared. He now rented a modest apartment in Brooklyn. Ironically, only a few blocks away from the tiny office where everything had once begun. Every morning, Ethan walked to work carrying a worn leather briefcase. He had accepted a position as a business consultant for a small startup. No interviews, no magazine covers, no television appearances. His new co-workers knew little about his past, and that was exactly how he wanted it. One evening, as he walked home, he passed an electronics store. Several televisions displayed a live business awards ceremony. The headline at the bottom of the screen read, Entrepreneur of the Year, Emma Carter. Ethan stopped walking. Inside the store, Emma stepped onto the stage. The audience stood and applauded. She accepted the award with a humble smile. The host asked, What inspired you to keep moving forward after everything you experienced? Emma answered calmly. I learned that success means very little if it costs you your character. She continued, the people who truly win in life aren't the ones who collect the most money. They're the ones who never lose themselves while earning it. The audience gave her another standing ovation. Outside, Ethan quietly smiled. There was no bitterness left, only acceptance. He whispered to himself, They finally know who you really are. Then he continued walking. Several weeks later, Emma received a small envelope in the mail, no return address. Inside, there was only a handwritten note. Emma, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect another chance. I only wanted to thank you. Losing everything forced me to become honest for the first time in years. I finally understand that success borrowed from someone else's sacrifice never truly belongs to you. I hope your future is everything I failed to protect. Ethan Emma folded the letter carefully. She didn't throw it away. She didn't frame it either. Instead, she placed it inside an old memory box, the same box that still held photographs from the tiny office in Brooklyn. Some memories deserved to stay in the past. Not because they were beautiful, but because they reminded us how far we'd come. That evening, Emma stood alone on the rooftop terrace of Carter Innovations. The city lights stretched endlessly across the horizon. David Harrison joined her. You finally have everything you wanted. Emma smiled softly. No. David looked confused. What do you mean? She gazed at the skyline. I don't have everything. I have something better. David waited. Emma took a slow breath. I have peace. For several moments, neither of them spoke. The wind gently carried the sounds of the city below. A city that had once witnessed her humiliation, now witnessed her success. Not because she destroyed someone else's life, but because she rebuilt her own. Sometimes, the greatest victory isn't watching the person who hurt you fall. It's realizing that their fall is no longer necessary for your happiness. People may steal your ideas. They may take credit for your hard work. They may even break your heart. But they can never take away your character, unless you give it to them. Success built on lies eventually collapses. Success built on honesty lasts forever. And remember, Never underestimate the quiet person standing beside you today, because they may be the very reason you're standing at all. Fade to black.